SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Gateway Rescue Mission, meeting the physical and spiritual needs of the homeless right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Check us out at www.gatewaymission.org.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, yeah, baby, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. Friday morning. But now I'm a man, way past 21.
So great to be here. Mornings with Richard Cross. It's my last day with you. I'm Scott Sands. Thanks for letting me hang out, and I'm sure I'll say this several times throughout the morning. It's been a great pleasure and an honor to sit in for Richard and the time slot that Paul Gallo occupied for so many years. It's been a real honor, and it's been a lot of fun to talk to everybody back home in Mississippi, and I've enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, Lance and Alex and Will and everybody that's been a part of letting me sit in with the show this week. It's been really appreciated. Been a lot of fun.
I went back over. I went into the hallway a minute ago after I got my coffee, and we have a sign in there. It's a great employee. It tells you there's like 10 things that to be a great employee, you got to do those things. And the first one is to be on time. And you nailed that. Every day this week, you were on time.
I mean,
you're
it
coachable.
Sounds like you're setting
you had a great attitude.
Sounds like you're setting a very low bar.
No. I mean, it goes in a good order, though. But all 10 of those, I just read them, and I'm like, this Sands guy, he's got all of it, man. So, no, you've done a great job. It's been a pleasure with you, buddy.
I've been in the music industry for a long time, and one of the dirty secrets of bands and concerts is that the headliner usually never books an opening act that will outshine them. Now, it does happen from time to time, but what this tells me is that Richard has determined that there is no way that I would outshine him while he's on vacation.
Oh, man. Now, you went deep there. That was deep.
So, we're going to try to have some fun. It's
it
Friday.
Doesn't work that way always, though. I mean, like with
topics.
Yeah, it does. But, the opening band, as I told you, when Guns N' Roses, I think they opened for Van Halen. They showed up Van Halen. I don't care what Van Halen did after that. They're never.
And now Guns N' Roses may not even show up.
Yeah.
So I think that the thing has kind of reversed itself. Yeah. I want to have a little bit of fun on Friday. I think that's generally what you and Richard try to have done as well. But we will get into some serious stuff this morning as well. The big story that we'll track throughout the day is the threat of severe weather for pretty much the entire state beginning late this afternoon and into tomorrow. Really, there's the threat for some wind, some hail, some tornadoes may form, and severe thunderstorms across the state. Some of the St. Patrick activities that were planned for this weekend have been either moved inside, canceled, delayed, time changes. Depending on where you are, if you were planning to go to a big St. Patrick's Day party or parade, you might want to check to see if that's happening. I remember loving the St. Patrick's Day parade in Biloxi when I was down on the coast because as a kid working in radio in high school and driving the radio station van and the St. Patrick's Day parade, some of those women went a little wild. And that was always an enjoyable event. We need somebody to drive the van. Pick me, I'm here. I'm available for that. It was a lot of fun. I bet it still is a blast down there. Probably a lot of people at like Mary Mahoney's and stuff this weekend as well, and all the Irish bars across the state. I'm excited. I got my hoodie for St. Patrick's Day. I don't know if it's in poor taste or not, but as a single man, I feel like it's okay to wear this. It's not inappropriate, but it walks right up to the line. I've got a green hoodie that I got from Amazon that says "Dibs on the Redhead."
Nice.
That's not over the line, is it?
No. I've seen that one, the Dibs on the Redhead one. Yeah, that's not over the line. I mean, it
seems appropriate, I think.
I think so. I mean, it is St. Patty's Day, era.
Right.
And there's a lot of redheads.
I could have done a lot worse. Yeah. There are much worse St. Patrick's Day T-shirts and hoodies that you could buy online. So I think I went the appropriate route for the St. Patrick's Day parties tomorrow. Birthdays today on this Friday, March 14th. Simone Biles, the Olympic gold medal gymnast. Steph Curry is 37 and still playing. If I were to play basketball, I'd have to sleep for the next 2 days. So I don't know how he's able to pull that off. Taylor Hanson, the middle brother in the Hanson brothers. Hanson, remember, Mbop is 42 today.
42, wow.
They're such good kids, man. I've had the opportunity to work with Hanson a number of times, and they've always been so nice and easy to work with. Rick Dees, famous disc jockey, worked in Memphis for a while, 75. Billy Crystal, 77. Michael Caine,
my man,
is 92.
Love Michael Caine.
He was Austin Powers' dad, Nigel Powers, in Goldmember. If you remember that.
So many good roles he's played.
And Albert Einstein was born on this day in 1879. Now, I mentioned, Lance, it is March 14th. It is Pi Day.
Yeah.
Are you? And I'm talking about pi as in P.I., not P.I.
Private Investigator Day, right.
Right. It's a 3.14 yada yada, the entire mathematical number, which I think Pi Day today has been commercialized. It's just such a fake holiday created by math companies to sell more math. That's
one of the interesting things, factoids about Pi Day is that MIT has often mailed its applications of decisions of letters to prospective college students for deliverie on Pi Day.
Nice. Yeah. So the other side of that is because it is Pi Day, a lot of people will celebrate this as pie, P-I-E, either for the delicious dessert treat or for pizza pies. And I went through, and I've not had the opportunity to visit a lot of these places. Maybe you're familiar with them, but I went into Grok AI on X and ChatGPT and said, give me the 5 best places to get a pie in the state of Mississippi. And it spit out some shops that are probably really good. I'd love to try some of these. The Crystal Grill in Greenwood, which has been open since 1932.
That place is it's been there forever. It is an icon. Been there several times over the years. Never had a pizza though.
Well, this is a pie.
Just a pie. Yeah, now I've had their pies and stuff. Yeah, man.
They say the lemon icebox pie is the one to get.
That's like Mamaw makes, So
in Richland, Tom's Fried Pie Shop.
Well, that place is legit. Been there. Yeah. Don't get in a hurry. Just go chill out and tell him to get you like one of each. Fried pies. It's like Mamaw, like a little fried pie though. What my Mamaw would call a tart.
They recommend the apple.
I would get them. All of them are good. I've had the meat pie and all of them. I mean, they're delicious. They're fried pies. You can't go wrong.
What about in New Albany, Sugary's Bakery?
Sugary's is legit. Any kind of dessert, pastry style, they knock it out. Yeah.
In Vicksburg, Grok recommended Walnut Hills Restaurant.
Yeah, again, another staple I hunt over there north of Vicksburg. So, yeah, it's well known.
They recommend the pecan praline pie, which they describe as a dreamy mashup of praline liqueur and pecans.
You can't go wrong with that.
In an 1860s house, so a nice little slice of Mississippi history as well. Back to the Delta in Greenville, Sherman's Restaurant. Again, a lemon icebox pie, chocolate cream, coconut cream. But they say the lemon icebox is probably the best seller.
Yeah, you're talking about pies, man. I love the fudge pie, the lemon icebox pie, the pecan pie. I've never really gotten into the pumpkin pies. I know that some people really love them. It's never been my forte, but some people absolutely swear by them and say they're awesome. So,
in Jackson, you may be familiar with Char. C-H-A-R? I think I'm pronouncing that correct.
Yeah, Char.
For their pecan pie.
Very nice
more of an upscale place.
Yeah, very upscale and nice.
I also asked Grok about pizza places for National Pie Day, and they spit out some recommendations. Brooklyn Pizza, which I believe I've tried in Gulfport. It's also got some spots in Biloxi and Long Beach, which has that New York-style pizza. I love the foldable slices.
Yes.
Thin crust is the way to go.
Yeah, when you're walking on Bill Street, Bill Street, Bourbon Street walking with a beer or something, the foldable slice is the way to roll.
Don't try to sell me on one of those deep dish pizzas, like the Chicago or the Uno pizzas. That's a dough casserole is what that becomes. Some of the other recommendations, they've got a location in Jackson and Biloxi, Sal and Mookie's New York Pizza and Ice Cream Joint.
I'll tell you, if you haven't had their Stromboli sandwich, it's take the pizza, turn it into a sandwich. It's absolutely one of the best things you'll ever eat. And great restaurateur owns that, and they take it serious. The pizza is really good, but I'm telling you, do the Stromboli sandwich one day, and you'll be like, what was that? Oh my goodness.
This is a chain. They've got locations in Tupelo, Oxford, and Ridgeland. It's Lost Pizza Company. It's a Mississippi company.
Solid pizza, yes, sir.
And they recommend the bacon cheeseburger pizza,
had it
which
many
sounds
times.
delicious.
It is.
The Happy Hippie, which is a vegetable packed pizza. And some of the other ones they spit out
that
was Tony's Brick Oven Pizzeria in Gulfport. And they've got a gumbo pizza that I would love to try.
Really?
With a spicy roux and shrimp and crab andouille sausage, okra.
I'll go with you on that. I'll try it with you, I may have to try to
make may have to try to make a gumbo pizza up here.
Yeah,
it's been a while since I've tried to make a roux. I got to see
the pic of this. Yeah, I got.
I haven't made a roux in a long time. A lot of basketball action yesterday. I think the Kentucky game just ended a couple of minutes ago. We'll go over some of those scores next. Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass Traffic Center, I'm Patty Steele. Venable Glass has 2 locations in Richland and Brandon, locally owned and operated with free mobile service for you in the Tri-County area. Traffic is moving smoothly right now. We are all clear with no accidents, no major congestion. Need heavy haul transportation you can trust? Call Southeastern Services. They move the big stuff with care and precision. From oversized loads to machinery. Call Southeastern Services, your trusted partner on the road. 601-292-9932.
You already know Pillium Corporation is fully committed to keeping your company safe and current with IT support, security, and forensics. And with Pillium Connect, we now offer cabling. From soup to nuts, Pillium is truly your one-stop source for innovative technology to help you grow and thrive in today's ever-evolving business environment. Learn more about Pillium Connect cabling and our other services at Pillium.com.
Smart people, smart business, smart solutions.
Pickup truck, sports car, motorcycle, minivan, townhouse, 2-story, farmhouse, fixer-upper. What you drive and where you live is different for everyone, so it's important to have insurance that fits your needs and is just right for you. At Shelter Insurance, we understand that, which is why our agents help you design a comprehensive auto, home, and life insurance plan. Insurance that fits just right.
Jamie Creel, Shelter Insurance. Come see why we're more than just an agent. Proudly serving the Jackson metro area and the great state of Mississippi. Give us a call at 601-992-6000.
Hi, I'm Josh Quick, the owner of Mid-South Crawl Space Solutions, formerly known as Clean Space of Central Mississippi. Our name may have changed, but our expertise remains. An unhealthy crawl space can invite mold, bugs, and buckling floors. This affects not only your crawl space, but compromises the health of your entire home. Our Clean Space system will transform your crawl space into a dry, healthy, clean environment that will save you energy and money. No more moisture, no more mold, no more smells. Still doing free estimates at mscrawlspace.com.
Get that yard cleaned up with help from Bad Boy Products from Woods Equipment, the lawnmower store. Woods Equipment is a Bad Boy diamond dealer and are the largest Bad Boy dealer in Central Mississippi. Check out all the Bad Boys like zero-turn mowers, tractors, UTVs, and more at Woods Equipment's new larger location at 5023 Highway 80 in Pearl. You can get 0% interest and payments as low as $84.68 per month. Check them out at woodsequipmentinc.com or, as Mr. Alvin says, come on down and let's make a deal.
Sometimes
No spin, just the truth as we cover the news. That's what you get with me. It's Eric Erickson, weeknights starting at 9 p.m. right here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Keeping Mississippi in the know, one morning at a time. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Great to be here with you all this morning. My name is Scott Sands, sitting in for Richard. C Spire text line is open at 601-879-4395. You can also find me on X at Scott Sands Media, the Scott Sands Show on Facebook. I saw a bunch of text messages coming in on other pie recommendations, both pizza and the delicious dessert kind on the C Spire text line. I don't know if you know any of those spots, Lance.
Yeah, well, I wanted to update the Crystal Grill. I do remember it. It's closed. Owner retired, and we had one ate there the last day. So sad. I remember it's been a few years since I'd been there. So yeah, the Crystal Grill officially closed, but man, it fed a lot of Mississippians and made a lot of people happy over the decades that it was there.
Yeah, it's always sad when one of those long-time institution restaurants.
Yeah, it was last summer. That was right. I remember that. I think we actually talked about it on air a little bit and had a great number of listeners saying they were going to get over there for it. And I see them. So thank you guys for getting on us this morning and letting us know. And we got one here at the Rest Haven in Clarksdale, chocolate coconut pie.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, love that.
I've been on this weight loss journey for just over a year now, and I couldn't tell you the last time I had like pie or fast food. Although I may have to break down if Bobby Kennedy can eat the beef tallow fries from a Steak and Shake. I may have to try them. Now that's probably not something you want to eat every day, but it's supposed to be better for you and taste.
They have good fries. Really, yeah, I mean, I've had them many times. I like their burgers too. They're solid.
I keep a couple of browser tabs open for breaking news. Yeah, well, I think I've got like 12 open at the moment, but just in case there's any breaking news, and this just caught my attention during the commercial break. The headline was, "Mysterious radio pulses are coming from somewhere scientists have never seen before." Mm-hmm. For a decade, apparently, we've been sending blasts of radio emissions towards other stars, towards other solar systems, and apparently we've been getting radio emissions from the area of the Big Dipper constellation. And using multiple telescopes, they finally revealed where they might be coming from. And they appear to be emitted from a pair of what they call dead stars, a red dwarf and a white dwarf in orbit around each other so tightly that their magnetic fields are interacting, and when they bump together, it sends out a blast of radio signals, which I have to assume is a Sabrina Carpenter song. So that's a little top 40 humor.
Rick Dees Day, yeah.
Yeah, she is. She is everywhere. Last night I watched basketball literally all day working from home. Enjoyed a nice pour, by the way, of the Old Soul bourbon. We talked to the Cathead distillery guy yesterday. Not for breakfast. I had the sip I poured during the show when we were talking to him. I let sit and had that sip during the Ole Miss game, and then I poured another glass watching Mississippi State last night. But I fell asleep on the couch during the Kentucky game and woke up this morning, and the Kentucky game was still on. It was the replay of it, but I was very confused for a little while because Kentucky didn't tip off until after 11:45 last night.
Oh, man.
They have to play two games today. Kentucky plays Alabama tonight in the night game at what's supposed to be 8:30. And again, I'm on Eastern time. I apologize. It was only 10:45 for you.
But good for them. They need a tough day.
It's still late. So Kentucky's going to have to play two games today. They're literally going to have a couple of hours to get ready, and I don't know if that works to their advantage or not.
Well, you hopefully, if whoever they're playing is very happy with that setup, and Kentucky's had some favored nation status over the many years in basketball, so let them have a rough day. If they get through it, good for them. But Ole Miss and Arkansas tied up. That was a dang good game. Ole Miss was way up at the half. You looked like they were going to kind of get out in front of them a bit. And what did Arkansas do? No.
I sent you a text. They blew like a 14-point lead at one point.
They did, yeah. It was ugly there for a minute, but. Sean Padula, it was 0 for 6. Yeah, 0 for 6 on the threes as you go in. And what do shooters do? They keep shooting. And the one he made, 1 of 7, that was the big one. And Malik Dia. Yeah, buzzer beater. Malik Dia with a great night, 19 points. A rough night at the 3-point line, though, for the Rebs, and really Arkansas as well. But Padula made it count when it matters the most. And that's really what it's all about is you got to be clutch. This is the time of the year where they say, well, clutch is not really an asset. It's not an attribute. Yes, it is when it comes to athletes. You can be terrible the whole game, but when it's time to win one, can you win it? And that kid did. And
give me the ball.
Yeah, that speaks volumes because he's had some up and down games, and the guy, he's a shooter. He's going to go shoot, and when he's on, that's what you're looking for. But he had some very good games. Other than one of them, really, all of the games were solid. Ole Miss with a 3-point win over Arkansas, Texas, and Texas A&M. That one was an OT game.
Yeah, I think a couple of
OTs there, and Texas ends up winning that. That's going to put them in, I believe. So it looks like 14 teams.
14 teams.
Are going to be in. That's amazing,
which is a record, I believe, in the Big Dance. And I've got mixed feelings on that as well. I mean, it's great as an SEC homer. It's great to see so many SEC teams represented, but because of the money, when you start throwing in a bunch of SEC and Big Ten schools into the tournament, it takes away slots that a team like up here, the Toledo Rockets from the MAC conference, might be able to get. They're able to win their.
You tuned into the Toledo game. How'd that one turn out yesterday?
That went into overtime as well, and Toledo was able to pull that game out in overtime. I don't know how many of the MACtion games you get in the South, if they're of any interest at all. But MACtion football, MACtion basketball are always great. I'd love to see like Southern Miss join the MAC.
I like the MACtion in the football world. It always gives you something to watch. Also, it's football and it's a quality product.
Tuesday night games on ESPN Plus with 3 inches of snow on the ground.
I kind of feel for those guys too, because you're talking about a Tuesday game. The clock and how you prepare is so different for teams that play those midweek games regularly, the Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And I mean, I've always wondered how that really works when you're playing in
change the schedule.
Yeah, the whole schedule's different. Well, and then Mississippi State got into one, but before that Kentucky and Oklahoma game, 1 point comes down to the end, obviously, as so many of these games do. Kentucky wins that. Oklahoma 20-13. Really would have loved to have had that for some seeding potentially, but Kentucky was victorious, and Missouri kind of put it on State. State didn't shoot it overly well, scored 73 points, though, but that put them out of the SEC tournament. We move on. Ole Miss will have Auburn, at 12 o'clock.
The good thing is, for Texas A&M and Mississippi State, if there's an upside, they're still going to make the NCAA tournament.
Get those legs.
Now have a few days to rest up for it. So I've always wondered about that, especially, some of these teams like Arkansas potentially could play 4 or 5 days in a row going into the tournament.
It's tough.
Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Tennessee get a couple of days to rest up before the quarterfinals today, but
no rest.
You build up a little bit of that momentum, but then you got to keep playing.
Yeah, no rest for Ole Miss Auburn. That's a lunchtime game, so that'll be on ESPN there for you to tune into. Texas and Tennessee. That ought to be a pretty good game after Texas with the big win yesterday over their rival. They'll have Tennessee number 8, 25-6. That is 2:30 ESPN. SEC Network game, 6 o'clock, will be Missouri and Florida. Florida, number 4 in the country. Missouri been playing pretty hot basketball, 22-10. Florida, 27-4. And then the Kentucky and Alabama game. That ought to be another good one. And a late start again for Kentucky there, 8:30, SEC Network. And those are the that's your quarterfinals.
They're probably happy that they didn't end the game at midnight and have to play the noon game today. That probably would have been really rough.
Yeah, just feed them and let them get out there and start shooting again. You don't want them to go to bed because you may not be able to wake them up. But college kids are.
I was dangerously close to wearing an Alabama hoodie today, and I thought, you know what?
It's Friday. You should have done that.
Right. I'll pass on the Bama hoodie. I'll put it on later before the game. But I am, and I know I've taken a lot of grief on the C-Spire text line all week about admitting that I am an Alabama fan on SuperTalk Mississippi. But I will be cheering loudly for Ole Miss because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so exactly. I will be cheering for Padula to have a great game today and be able to defeat the Tigers.
What was it that Reagan said? Did we have a guest that said, Reagan said that if you're an enemy of mine 20% of the time, you're not an enemy, or is it something like that? So, and you had some other big games yesterday. Duke beat Georgia Tech. Duke's number 1. They're in their ACC tournament quarterfinal. That was a 78-70 game. Houston, who's number 2, that's a Big 12 championship quarterfinals. They took down Colorado. My prediction was correct. That was not a tough one to predict. Houston being number 2, 26-4. They won that one 77-68. St. John's is number 6 team in the country. They took down a rival in Butler. Pretty good beat down there, 78-57. And then Texas Tech, number 9, took down Baylor 76-74. And then number 10, Clemson, in the quarterfinal of the ACC, beat SMU 57-54. So pretty good ball games yesterday, and they'll continue through the day as well. So if you're not an SEC fan and you just like basketball, plenty of it for you today. And we got baseball.
Plenty of basketball.
Too. Yeah, and baseball as well.
Ole Miss, Auburn, 12 noon tip-off on ESPN today. We're tracking severe weather, the threat of possible tornadoes throughout the state later this afternoon into tomorrow. All of the information, click the weather tab at supertalk.fm. Scott Sands in for Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Know where the news is going next. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Somebody told me when I first got to Nashville, oh, you finally got it made. Old Hank made it here. We're all sure that you will, but I don't think Hank done it this way.
Great Nashville reference with the SEC tournament continuing today and the Ole Miss game at noon. Scott Sands sitting in for Richard Cross. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. I saw a stat last night. The American Gaming Association estimates that Americans will wager $3.1 billion on NCAA basketball tournaments, which is up about $500 million from last year. It's a real shame that you're not able to make any wagers in the state of Mississippi online. Of course, check out one of the fantastic sports books at the casinos across the state, or, send your money overseas on one of those shady international websites.
ShadyDeal.com.
If that's your choice. And if you are a fan of all of the games and you don't want to miss anything and you don't like the picture-in-picture, Samsung is offering a buzzer beater bundle. Try to say that 3 times fast. It's 8 TVs, a 98-inch 4K TV, a 65-inch 8K, 3 65-inch 4Ks, and 3 55-inch 4Ks.
That you opening a bar?
Yeah, it's like putting your own sports bar together. Yeah. It could be a really intense accent wall, all for the low price of just over $10,000, which is actually a pretty good deal. I mean, it's about a 30% discount if you were going to buy all of those televisions separately.
You may get
it's
like
available until the tournament starts.
Yeah, you may get like one season ticket out of that. $10,000 the way these tickets have been going. Yeah, so maybe it's a better deal. Cool. Yeah, you get 8 TVs instead of one season ticket.
I'm in an apartment. I'm not even sure I have enough wall space for 10 televisions.
I don't know, man. The way I'm looking at that studio here, we could work something out. It would just be TVs.
Yeah. I do have like 6 monitors in my home studio.
Yeah, if you're trading, you got to have at least 4. 6 is preferred. Right.
Yeah. So if you remember the career trajectory of Brett Favre after leaving the Packers, going to the Jets, and then the Vikings, there apparently is now a very real possibility that Aaron Rodgers, should he not retire, could follow the same career path and wind up after leaving the Jets with the Vikings, perhaps starting and maybe mentoring Michigan's J.J. McCarthy, who is with the Vikings now. So that'll be interesting to follow there.
Yeah, that would be an interesting mentorship, too. Anytime you tag along with Aaron Rodgers, you're going to get some conspiracy theories, and then he'll probably throw the football right on the money, then turn around and lecture you about something. And, hey, Tiger, what up, buddy?
It's the tail of the picture.
I see Tiger, man. Aaron Rodgers, what a dude. The only thing that would be different there is that Brett started with Atlanta. And Aaron did not. So, but that would be a pretty interesting career path, though, right?
I don't get the impression that Aaron Rodgers would want to mentor his possible replacement. Maybe
that's not the guy.
Maybe I'm projecting something onto him, but I get that impression from him.
He seems like a great guy, but he doesn't seem like the one that would want to be the mentor at this point in his career. Maybe still thinking he has a lot in the tank. The old Jake Taylor from Major League, probably be a little upset if he came in and the coach said, "Hey, we want you to mentor this McCarthy kid." He'd be like, "What are you talking about? I'm the quarterback here."
small sports stories that I clipped. Bill Belichick, who's now coaching football at UNC.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me he was dating somebody younger.
Well, he is dating that 24-year-old girl. Apparently, he has told all of his staff, every employee at UNC, to copy his 24-year-old girlfriend on any email or text that they send him. Mm-hmm. So it's probably true that Belichick's not the most tech-savvy guy, but I did see video of him appearing to have trouble walking over the weekend. Man. So he's, but I'm sure it's love. We don't have to get into that relationship. We listen. We don't judge. I'm not going to make any calls on this, but the girlfriend is very involved now, apparently, in the coaching process at UNC.
That's his mentor.
Rumors,
that's his replacement. Obviously, he's going to mentor her.
Rumors abounding now that Tiger Woods has a new girlfriend too, and it's Donald Trump Jr.'s ex-wife Vanessa.
Oh man! Okay.
Apparently, they're getting hot and heavy. That's what I'm hearing from some of my people in D.C.
How that introduction happened, right?
Yeah. How does any Tiger Woods girlfriend introduction happen?
It's got to rub going like, how does that work?
Hi, I'm Tiger Woods. That's exactly how that goes.
Over here. Oh yeah, we're going to hit it
I've got a guy I want you to meet. His name is Tiger Woods. Okay. Yeah. I think it's probably pretty easy to be Tiger's wingman if I had to guess.
Man, it would be an easy job.
All right, so I wanted to have a little fun this morning. We will get into some serious topics a little bit later in the show. But
this is serious stuff. Come on.
I follow Reddit. I don't know if you're a Reddit guy. There are some weird threads on Reddit, and this one caught my attention this week as well. There's a list online of hobbies and interests that men love, that men have, that they keep on the down low from their buddies.
Okay.
Maybe a hobby. Something you like to do, something you're
needlepoint
or
something?
Or, right. That's exactly what it is. And I'm curious, maybe we can get some of these on the C Spire text line.
I like whittling.
Right. Yeah. That's not something you would keep secret from your buddies, though. I mean, whittling is a manly activity of sorts, I guess. Some of the ones on this Reddit list were things like, I have stuffed animals and plushies from Squishmallow on my bed. That's not something you necessarily want your buddies to know about.
Yeah, when you never get the invite to come over and have a beer, you know why. Beanie Babies everywhere.
You got cute stuffed animals all over the place. You're going to
probably
hide
on them too.
Those.
Still got the tag on them like those collectors. You don't touch him. Don't touch him.
Somebody on Reddit said, I secretly love motivational quotes, but I'm too proud to admit that I have a notebook full of my favorites.
I like the ones that have a tiger on it. Anytime there's like a lion or a tiger in a motivational quote or a unicorn, those are my favorites. I don't care what's on it or what it says. I just like the fact that there's a tiger or a unicorn or something, It's kind of cheesy.
There's no ages on this Reddit list, so it's hard to really make a judgment about these guys. But one guy admitted on the Reddit thread that my wife and I watch every season of Love is Blind on Netflix, and I love it. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that show?
Well, first of all, he said with his wife. So, I mean, you can't say I don't love it or you're in the doghouse there. So, no, I don't know that show at all. There's too many. There's just too many.
There are a lot. I've watched like one episode of it. I get sucked into some stupid shows sometimes. Mm-hmm. Like if I happen to see The Bachelor and I've got nothing else going on, if there's no sports on, nothing happening in the news, I might get sucked into The Bachelor. Love is Blind. If I remember this correctly, because it's been a couple of years, the guys and girls talk, and you see them on camera developing a relationship, but they don't get to see each other until the very end.
Yeah, okay.
And then they decide whether or not to get married. And in fact, there was a story this week about the Love is Blind marriage that got called off at the altar because the woman standing there with the groom and with the preacher decided, you know what, I've thought about this, and I want somebody who is more in line with my belief system, and I didn't like your opinions on the vaccine, on BLM.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the replay of that the other day where they were standing at the altar, and the girl's like, oh, I love you, and all this, but you could tell she's crawfishing back a bit. And the guy's sitting there he's like, yeah. And she's like,
where are we going with this?
Where are we going with this stuff? The other good one was, did we tell the folks about the air guitar championship?
The air guitar championship
Johnny
was on TV.
Stinkfinger, that's the guy that I got to,
I got sucked into that and I had to share it with you.
That was good stuff, man. Johnny Stinkfinger, or whatever his first name was. All of those guys were great. But man, that was wild. And listening to the judges, to me, was the best part. They were quite
in depth.
It was like the Ocho on dodgeball.
I think it actually was the Ocho, because after the air guitar competition came dodgeball. So I watched
great,
a little bit of that too.
Thank you for the heads up. If y'all didn't see that, you got to go watch like 2 or 3 of these folks and just listen to the announcers. They were
very into it.
Yeah, they were into it, and they had the moves too. They would, he's doing this and that, and it's like they've been following this stuff.
Darren in Jackson sent a text that says, I found out a good friend of mine collects Barbies. Oh. He swore me to secrecy.
Yeah, you may not want to let that one out, right?
I'm sure he did. Just a couple of others on this list from Reddit of hobbies that men enjoy but might hide from their buddies. I enjoy listening to boy bands like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. My friends are all into rap and the auto-tune stuff, which sounds horrible. Hey, look, I don't mind admitting that the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC put out some bangers in the 90s, man, and their concerts were huge.
Yeah, the boy bands of that era, they were big. There were several of them, and I can't say that the music was bad or anything. I'm a music person. They put together some harmony. It's like a cappella with rock. And I thought, you don't see that anymore, but that was an interesting time. You had 3 or 4 of those boy bands that were just jamming.
Hey, look, I'm talking to the friends here, guys. There's nothing wrong with a little ribbon if your buddy may be a diehard Swiftie, but if you don't have friends with like diverse interests, then you probably need more friends. And that was the takeaway I took from this whole Reddit thread.
Well, and Mr. Sistrunk here says he enjoys getting a pedicure. So, that's...
Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
A couple of times a year, I'll get
I
a
work hard for those calluses.
Wrong with that.
Yeah, I work hard to build that stuff up down there.
I've got super soft hands and feet. I've never had an honest day's work in my life. I'm Scott Sands, and for Mornings with Richard Cross, I may be sharing too much now. We're keeping an eye on severe weather, which I'll tell you about in just a few minutes as well. If you haven't heard about that, be on the watch for severe storms after 5 today. And your Mississippi lottery numbers next here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass Traffic Center, I'm Patty Steele. Venable Glass has 2 locations in Richland and Brandon, locally owned and operated with free mobile service for you in the Tri-County area. Traffic is moving smoothly right now. We are all clear with no accidents, no major congestion. Need heavy haul transportation you can trust? Call Southeastern Services. They move the big stuff with care and precision. From oversized loads to machinery. Call Southeastern Services, your trusted partner on the road. 601-292-9932.
For generations, St. Dominic's has cared for our community with compassion and faith. Today, we're proud to be St. Dominic Health, now fully integrated as part of the Franciscan Missionaries of Our Lady Health System. Together, we're companions on a journey. For us, this transformation is more than a symbol. It's our commitment to continuing our healing ministry.
During tax... That yard cleaned up with help from Bad Boy products from Woods Equipment, the lawnmower store. Woods Equipment is a Bad Boy diamond dealer and are the largest Bad Boy dealer in Central Mississippi. Check out all the Bad Boys like zero-turn mowers, tractors, UTVs, and more at Woods Equipment's new larger location at 5023 Highway 80 in Pearl. You can get 0% interest and payments as low as $84.68 per month. Check them out at woodsequipmentinc.com, or, as Mr. Alvin says, come on down and let's make a deal.
Hey, I'm here with Alex Murray of Auto Innovation.
At Auto Innovation, we want to change your car buying experience. When you're in the market for a quality pre-owned vehicle, please come see us. We want to make friends, not just customers. All eligible vehicles are inspected by a MasterTech mechanic and come with a limited powertrain warranty on us. We are located on Highway 51 in Ridgeland. Come by and see us or check out our inventory online at autoinnovation.net. Let us change your car buying experience.
Auto Innovation, Highway 51 in Ridgeland.
Hey, this is Bob. Just walked into ESI Supply. James, y'all are the headquarters for cut-resistant gloves.
Yes, sir. We carry multiple brands, Radians, MCR, and Hex Armor. We got cut-ready gloves from A1 to A9, coated and leather, with impact and without.
ESI Supply is your protection headquarters. Stop by and see them at 111 Aerosmith Drive in Richland, or give them a call at 601-933-4910. That's 601-933-4910, or online at esisupply.net. That's esisupply.net.
Hi, I'm Tommy Moyers from Portland, Arkansas. I am proud to be the Arkansas Catfish Farmer of the Year. I've been raising catfish for 24 years. My family works hard to give you an easy choice. When you see that U.S. farm-raised catfish seal, you know it's going to be fresh and clean with that mild flavor every time. With quality like that, you can cook it with just about any recipe, so keep some around. Find recipes and restaurants at uscatfish.com.
Are you thinking about retirement, or are you recently retired? Do you have a plan, or do you have a drawer full of statements? If your answer is the latter, then you're not retirement planning, you're retirement hoping. Risks and inflation are rising, and planning is critical now. At Element Wealth, our exclusive 360 process can create a strategy to help protect what you've worked so hard to build, while still providing growth. To start the conversation, visit myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006. 601-957-6006.
This is where the story of your state gets told each day. We're proud to cover the Magnolia State like nobody else. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
No filibuster. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Your lottery numbers from the Mississippi Lottery. Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands sitting in this week. My last day. Thanks for letting me hang out with you guys. No jackpot winner still in Lotto America, Powerball, or Mega Millions. Some drawings coming up, which I'll tell you about. First up in Lotto America, the drawing tomorrow, now climbing over $26.18 million with a cash value of $12.29 million. The Powerball, up to $378 million with a cash value of just over $177.5 million. And Mega Millions, that drawing is tonight. By the way, the Powerball and Lotto America drawings are tomorrow night. The Mega Millions is tonight with a cash value of $129.5 million. Total value, $277 million. Double play numbers, if you missed them Wednesday night, 30, 31, 45, 56, 69, Powerball 25. The Mississippi Match 5, no jackpot winner there either. Jackpot tonight, that drawing is tonight as well, $565,000. There was a drawing last night. Those numbers, 3, 22, 24, 30, 31. So a lot of money on the line, drawings tonight and tomorrow night. Big winners yesterday in the Cash 4. A Lorman woman won $845 on a ticket from Fayette Food Mart in Fayette. A Carthage player won $2,600 on a ticket from Shell Mart Carthage. Another Lorman woman won $38.85 on 4 tickets from Fayette Food Mart in Fayette. So if you're in Lorman, shop at the Fayette Food Mart.
Yeah,
that apparently seems to be paying off. Apparently a different Lorman woman, but that shop is apparently pretty lucky. Ruleville woman won $5,000 on a ticket from a Double Quick in Ruleville. Cash Pop winners from Tylertown, a woman won $1,000 on a ticket from Murphy Oil in Columbia. A Fayette man won $1,000 on a ticket from Don Gabrielle Market in Jackson. And a Kosciuszko woman won $1,000 on a ticket from Blue Sky. Match 5 winner from Newton, a woman won $800 on a ticket from a Keith's Superstore in Ellisville. The Pink Panther winner, a Brandon man, won $1,500 on a ticket from Old 471 Food Mart in Brandon. A Jumbo Bucks winner, a Ripley woman, won $50,000 on a ticket from, again, Tobacco Warehouse. They seem to have a lot of winners. I've just noticed that this week. A Fayette, Alabama woman won $1,000 on a ticket from State Line Express in Caledonia. And a Greenville woman won $1,000 on a ticket from a Double Quick in Greenville. That's the 200X Cash Blitz winners. A lot of winners this week. And now you can get the inside scoop on the latest Mississippi Lottery games, all the promotions, all the updates. Sign up now to be a Mississippi Lottery Insider. Never miss out. Go to mslottery.com, click on Insider at the top of the page. Get in on all of the fun there. And speaking of promotions, the next Pink Panther drawing is coming up on Thursday the 20th. Enter your non-winning tickets in the Second Chance portal at mslottery.com until midnight on Monday to enter to win there. Unlimited, unclaimed draw tickets expiring very soon. If you may have bought one of these, check your numbers. There is a Lotto America ticket worth $20,000 purchased from a Be Quick in Columbia that expires on Monday. I don't know when that was sold. You may recall that.
It was back before the first of the year. Yeah, it was like November, December.
Probably like a 90-day, 6-month rule on
it's been a while. Tickets. We've had that one pop up a couple of times and the other one as well. There were 3 at one time, so hopefully somebody found one. Hopefully they did not expire. Right.
Yeah, there's a Mega Millions ticket out there worth $30,000 purchased from a Circle K in Jackson. That expires on Wednesday night, the 19th. So check your numbers, check your tickets, go scan them, and find out if you've got some cash you didn't know about. Or it could be, it's a lot of money. You're trying to figure out the tax implications maybe on some of these. Again, Powerball drawing tomorrow night for $378 million. Mega Millions drawing tonight for $277 million. And the Lotto America drawing is tomorrow night for $26.18 million. It's at that amount where I may have to send a text out to my group chat to get a lotto pool going on the Powerball and Mega Millions.
Hey, you'd be able to loan Europe some money.
Be able to pay the tariff on all of the European Union alcohol that's coming in. Hopefully what that means is if we're going to impose a 200% tariff on liquor, maybe, and the European Union and Canada doesn't want all of that, maybe some of that good American bourbon will start coming back and we'll see more of it on the shelves.
Yeah,
that's my hope on how the liquor tariff trade wars start to proceed.
I think the American consumer will pick up the slack on that one with the bourbon.
Yeah. We're tracking severe weather that could be in the area later this afternoon into tomorrow, and some of these storms could produce hail, high winds, maybe even some tornadoes. All of the latest severe weather information, click the weather tab at supertalk.fm. We'll talk to a Mississippi author, Michael Hewes, to start our next hour. Starla Brown from Americans for Prosperity in Mississippi will also join us next hour, and Wesley Smith, Austin Sumrall, all coming up on the show. It's Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. Find me, please, on X at Scott Sands Media so we can chat after I'm done with the show this week.
The Mississippi River don't look so wide. Louisiana woman, Mississippi man, we get together every time we can. The Mississippi River can't keep us apart. There's too much love in this Mississippi heart.
Too much love in this Louisiana heart. Well, I thought I'd been left, but...
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
I'm Scott Sands. This hour of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're still struggling with HR, benefits, payroll, you're not alone. And that's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services and a custom plan that fits you. Call them today at 601-206-7966 or go to mwgemployerservices.com. Starla Brown from Americans for Prosperity joins us later this hour. But first, here on Mornings with Richard Cross, we're joined by author Michael Hewes, who's written books like The Milk Wagon and Watermark. And full disclosure here, Michael and I went to high school together at St. John and Gulfport, but I promise you, I'm not using this opportunity to help plug a friend's book. I genuinely believe it's a great read, and we should promote the writing heritage of Mississippi. I mean, we've got people like Tennessee Williams, John Grisham, and now Michael Hewes. And The Milk Wagon and his first book, Watermark, have a lot of great imagery on the coast in Mississippi that's worth reading, too. Michael, it's so great to see you, my friend.
Always good to see you, Scott.
All right, so let's start with the Milk Wagon and explain, because obviously I'm familiar with the Milk Wagon in reality and the book. Explain what the Milk Wagon was.
So, as you know, and your listeners may know, Scott, we went to high school together. In our class, we graduated a long time ago, class of 87. Can't believe it's almost been 40 years, but we had 74 people in our class. And I've been fortunate all my life to have good friends, but there are no friends really like your high school friends. And our class, I don't know if we struck lightning in a bottle or whatever. We just had a fantastic class. We still get together once a year. You're a veteran of the Dancerama, our annual Dancerama in New Orleans. I always wanted to write about our class. It was just a very sentimental thing to me. And my high school friends, I love them all, and they're like family. And so the book is kind of a John Hewes meets John Grisham type story. It's got some John Hewes type elements, but it's also got an element of some criminal activity that's going on. But it's essentially about three friends in high school whose lives change forever when a new guy shows up with some pretty bad history. It's set in 1986 down here in Gulfport.
So the Milk Wagon itself, though, was this amazing Chevy Suburban that you actually had in reality in high school that is the home to many stories that we can't share on the radio.
You've been in the Milk Wagon, Scott. So we got the Milk Wagon, the portion of the Milk Wagon that's in the book, that story, except for the secret compartment, happened. I mean, one night we got 29 people in the Milk Wagon with you and Tommy Morrison and everybody else. So the Milk Wagon, it was a beat up. It's not like the Suburban people drive today. It was truly like a city vehicle. It was rusted out. It was in bad shape. The air didn't work. I had to tie a string on the windshield wiper and pull it to get the windshield wiper started through the windows. I mean, that's how we lived back then, Scott.
Right.
And we
were roughing it.
We had some great memory. We were roughing it. I think you had a Ford Fairmont, if memory serves me.
A Ford Granada, yeah. That at one point you asked to borrow, and it had no brakes at the time, and I think I forgot to tell you that.
Yeah, I remember that, and I think it was burgundy, right? Was it burgundy?
Yeah, nice.
Nice. You said it was Alabama Crimson Tide.
Alabama Crimson Red, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
So, explain the criminal aspect of the story, because it's not like The Breakfast Club, really, although it certainly has some of those aspects in it.
The criminal aspect involves this kid who comes to the school. His dad's involved in some illegal compounding, which actually has been in the news. It started back in the 80s, but most recently in Hattiesburg, there was some compounding issues where people were doing compounding medications and fraudulently charging the government and people for them and doing fake prescriptions just to get money. And so that's a true element that really happened, that really is going on. And so I kind of wove that in to this other kid named Nate who shows up, who's just trying to find himself. He has a terrible relationship with his father. His father's not a good person. And Nate, it's basically almost a revenge tale for Nate and the way his dad treated him, and you'll see how he treated his mom as well. And so, but underlying it all, Scott, is the coming together of these friends, like we would have done, to support them. And they even engage in a kind of a pseudo bank robbery on his behalf. I mean, not with guns and everything, but the friends come together and support this guy. And then in the middle of the book, he disappears, and you find out later what happened. And so, but it's just kind of that while that's going on, there's these relationships, these boys being boys. When the first cut of the book was about 120,000 words, and I cut it down to 90,000 because my editor told me to. But I've got reviews from all over the world on this, and my editor said the people don't want to hear you and your friends talking all the time. And I've got several reviews saying, I wish there's more dialogue between all the boys because it reminds me of my high school days. The book's got some legs. Robin Roberts picked it as her book of the year on Good Morning America a few years ago. And so it's been fun to talk about. It was fun to write. I wrote some other ones. I'm writing another one right now that I'm about just over a third of the way through, but I'm finally writing every day again, which is nice to work that side of my brain a little bit.
Well, I've seen you talk about the Milk Wagon with women's book clubs and school kids. It's really got a wide appeal, which in many cases for a fiction novel is unusual.
It does, and I think, it was set in 1986, but I've heard from people who graduated recently. I speak, it's required reading for some schools down here, Scott, so I speak at a high school once or twice a year down here to the students, and they are just into it. They want to hear about it. And also I hear from people who graduated in the 70s, but, even though the framing has changed, the stories that people have in high school, I think, resonate across all years. I think the current wave of kids, I've got a son who's a junior in high school, mother to have graduated. They tell me they wish there wasn't social media. They wish there wasn't phones because we had it different back then. And of course, Scott, it wasn't great every day back then. I mean, it was tough back then. We didn't have any money. I mean, we just tried to figure it out. But I think our kids today long for a time where there are connections. And you see these kids who do have connections today, and the connections happen when they're face to face and when they're interacting, and not so much over their phones. Now, their phones are part of them. That's part of their life now. But my sons have told me, I wish we didn't have phones all the time, Dad. So it's interesting. And
as you talk to the kids in schools, I mean, you and I have this conversation at nearly every reunion. We were pretty lucky to have a fairly good high school experience, but so many people don't remember their high school years quite as fondly. And I wonder what you're hearing from the kids as you speak to them about that.
It's interesting because you see kids of all types when you go to the schools, and some of them are disconnected, some of them are disengaged, some of them are engaged. But I think at their core, Scott, these kids today are like we were, like we are now, I would like to say. They long for a connection. They long for support. There's always one kid who's going to try to out-posture another. But at the end of the day, I think we all come from the same place. We were incredibly fortunate to have fantastic teachers. We were incredibly fortunate. I think we were good, Scott, even though we were in a small private school. Everybody came from a different background. There wasn't one particular group. And so everybody kind of merged together. And it created this bond that you don't get from hanging around with people who are just like you all the time. And just, again, it was lightning in a bottle for things to line up how they did for us, because I've carried those friendships through all my life. And I think that the opening of the Milk Wagon, the dedication is to my three sons, Holden, Jack, and Rush. And I think it says something like, I hope the memories of your high school carry you like mine have. And I hope your high school days carry you like mine have, because, I mean, I look fondly on you, Scott, and our group chat that we have together. I look forward to getting together every year. And, I mean, you're very successful in your job, and you're one of the best in the country. And it's just an honor to have grown up, and just a blessing. And God's watched out for us all this time to keep us all looking out for each other through all these years. And, I mean, and you can't put a price on that. You really can't.
We're talking to author Michael Hewes. His novel that we're talking about is The Milk Wagon. We've got a limited time here, but your first novel, Watermark, do the two tie together, or maybe they'll tie into your third book that you're working on now?
The Watermark was the first one. It was a hard write to do. The same characters, they're older versions of the characters in the Milk Wagon are in the Watermark. It's the same primary characters, but they're all grown up now, and they're dealing with some different issues. The one I'm writing now, I know we're almost out of time. My sons, for years, I was in the Army for a while, thought I was a secret agent, Scott, when I would leave for work and be gone for 2 or 3 weeks. So the next book's called The Agency, and it's a Hawk Hawkins origin story. It's about three brothers set in 1983. Who think their dad's a secret agent, and turns out he is. But there's some twist to it, and it's kind of for middle grade readers, so it's going to have a different vibe. But it's fun to write too. It's a lot of fun.
How do you juggle your time as like a high profile litigator and trying to write? Are you using artificial intelligence now at all?
I think you're overselling the high-profile litigator part, but I'm busy a lot. I'm stuck in hotel rooms a lot, and so I try to write when I'm there. And I bring my dog up here at night, and we write. And the other element, Scott, just to pitch real quick, me and Ron, who's also in our high school group, we wrote a song, and Ron's recording it in the studio now, so hopefully we'll see that out there soon. So it's just the high school collaborations continue.
I can't wait to share that on all the socials. Michael Hewes, The Milk Wagon. It's available now. You find it on Amazon. Get it, download it, read it. It's a great read. A lot of great imagery from the coast in Mississippi and help you relive some high school days. Michael, love you, man. Thanks for your time.
You too, brother. Take care.
Mornings with Richard Cross continues. I'm Scott Sands. And again, remember, threat of severe weather across the entire state later today into tomorrow. Click the weather tab at supertalk.fm to find out more.
From the
shaping Mississippi politics each morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Last night's drowning memories again. I
With that kind of open, let's try to shape some Mississippi politics. I'm Scott Sand, sitting in for Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. Yesterday, I saw that there was legislation that really hasn't been advanced in the state legislature to replace the two statues from the state and Statuary Hall in the U.S. Capitol. Excuse me. So, if you're not familiar with Statuary Hall, it's the big rotunda in the U.S. Capitol building, and it's a remarkable place. I've spent hours looking at all of the statues there in Statuary Hall, and every state is allowed to place two statues of people in the hall representing the state, and normally they're designated for people with illustrious for their historic renown or distinguished civil or military services. This has been in effect for the U.S. Capitol building since, I think, the 1800s, mid-1800s, and we've got two Confederate leaders representing the state of Mississippi in the U.S. Capitol in Statuary Hall. Jefferson Davis, J.Z. George are the two statues representing the state right now. And I think maybe it's time to consider replacing them. There's been talk about this for a while. Fred Shanks first said that he would consider legislation to replace the statues this year, but it hasn't really come up. There's been no advancement in that legislation. Reached out to Fred Shanks a couple of times this week. We weren't able to get on the same schedule to get Fred on to talk about this and other issues. Obviously, the state and the state legislature are really primarily concerned this year with school choice, DEI, online wagering, Kratom, all the things we've talked about this week, and, of course, income tax. And Fred said that there's not been a lot of talk about this. He was talking with Mississippi Today online about this. The big thing leadership is pushing, obviously, tax cuts and eliminating the state income tax. But if you're going to respect winners and not failures, Davis and George are tied to a lost cause. And honoring them, in my opinion, and I realize this is going to be controversial to some, celebrates defeat. It's not the strength that we as conservatives should value. And I got to be honest with you, and Lance, I don't know how often this has come up on Super Talk Mississippi, but my opinion on this has definitely changed over the years. I mean, if this would have come up when I was doing radio in Hattiesburg in the 90s, I probably would not have been in favor of changing out the statues. And even as recently as a few years ago when there was a big controversy in New Orleans about replacing the monument to Robert E. Lee at Lee Circle in New Orleans, I think I was opposed to it. I can't say for sure where I would have stood on this issue, but I think I would have probably at that time said, no, we need to keep our heritage and keep those statues there. But today, I think it's perhaps time to look at the true legacy, perhaps, of the Confederacy, which honestly was a polluted regime that crushed individual rights in many ways. And I don't know if we have time really to get into why I believe that, but I wanted to present some, and I know that there have been a couple of other proposals on who could replace the statues of George and Davis in the U.S. Capitol, but there are plenty of other names that would better today in 2025 and moving forward represent the state of Mississippi and some change for the state. And I put together a list of the names that came to mind with me offhand, and I can make an argument for all of these individually. Medgar Evers, who may be controversial, but obviously a civil rights leader. B.B. King, I think would be a terrific representation of Mississippi. And I already see the ceasefire text line exploding with comments. Eudora Welty, Elvis Presley, Walter Payton, William Faulkner, Jim Henson even, who was born in Greenville and grew up in the Delta before creating the Muppets. Some lesser-known names like Bascom, who was a cowboy and rodeo innovator, raised in Mississippi, invented key rodeo gear like the modern saddle horn, and really ties him to the state's lesser-known rural heritage and more of a rugged, hands-on legacy. You got Sam Cooke, you've got John C. Stennis, Bo Diddley, a number of names come to mind as possible replacements in Statuary Hall. How often does this come up, Lance?
No. We haven't had that conversation. But, yeah, I'm working on the Hill many, many years ago. I was just blown away at I'm a big love statue, love marble, and worked in the arts after being up there. It was such a beautiful place and filled with so many, historic, items and things that are so, definitive to the history of this country, which is greatly and diverse. So I always found it to be inspiring and humbling to be around that. And then going and finding the Mississippi statues of George and Davis. I'm with you. I probably would look at things a little differently today than I would have, say, 10, 20, 30 years ago. But Jeff Davis, very important figure, whether you loved him or hated him.
There's no denying his influence.
Yeah. I'd probably say, though, with George, it might be time to update. I would say put Kirk Fordyce in there. That was he was the starting point for the Republican wave that we've seen, and gets a very. I think sometimes people don't give Fordyce enough credit for creating this the world that we live in today, the conditions that allowed the Republicans to grow in favor here, at least in a lot of Democrats that chose to jump ship and come over to the Republican side. And we see that every day in the differences in the Senate and the House and the diversity of our leadership. So I think there is an idea that we could definitely update one of those. But again, that's not for me to decide. That's just an opinion. But we have so many colorful figures in the history of the state. If you're looking at just politicians, or are we talking about musicians, entertainers, and people like that? So, but yeah, Mississippi's put out some great talent, and maybe it's time to put that up there in the hall.
The thing is, I knew that I probably wasn't going to make any friends if I brought this up, and I knew it would be somewhat controversial. But I think it's something that needs to at least be discussed. Even if it doesn't pass the state legislature to change it out, I think it's a conversation worth having. And I'm looking at the C Spire text line, and one of the comments was, keep your Yankee beliefs up there. Well, I'm a Mississippi guy at heart, and I'm also a conservative. If you look around the state of Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Arkansas have all swapped out their Confederate statues for other icons. Helen Keller, Johnny Cash, and right now Mississippi is the last holdout with those two Confederate statues. And I think being a conservative and having pride in our state means we don't settle for being the odd man out. And if we really value facts over feelings, then maybe replacing them respects actual history without romanticizing the worst parts of our history.
Well, I agrees in that stuff, and I always found that running from your past is never a good thing. You don't put it in a closet and hide from it. You're never going to solve any of the great riddles of today and the problems we have by not looking at history in the correct context. So I'm not a big cancel culture person. I never saw the value in any of that.
I think cancel culture is bad for our country in general, and I'm not saying we're falling into a cancel culture mentality if we change out the statues. And one of the comments on the C Spire text line was no entertainers. Well, look, our leaders gripe that the rest of the country ignores our state's heritage of music, literature, and grit. So I think that by having Davis and George there, we're bearing some of our real achievements, and new statues can shout to the rest of the country, for the few people that see them, what we're really doing here. And if we live by Christian values of redemption, replacing those statues may align better with a state that's grown beyond some of our mistakes, if you fall into that point of view.
Well, change is constant, isn't it? It's always going to be, and you have to embrace change. And sometimes it's not comfortable, but change is coming, and change is always going to be there. But again, I always think that believing in your history as part of who you are does not define you exactly. It's just part of the DNA, and it doesn't need to be forgotten, and we don't need to run from the mistakes or from the things that made Mississippi where we found it for so many years, which was kind of at the back of the pack. And I think one of the things that has allowed us to get beyond that is knowing who we are, embracing our history, knowing where we need to make adjustments and move forward. And I'm just one of those that I like moving forward. I don't like dwelling much in something that happened 100, 200 years ago.
we can remember and we should remember and respect our heritage and our history, but also I think that we need to put Mississippi's best foot forward with solid principles of strength, practicality, pride, liberty, and again, it's a conversation worth having. And I'm not saying that I've got the answers on who should represent the state, but the conversation should be had. Somebody on the text line talking about removing the statue of Andrew Jackson from Jackson City Hall, a man for which the city is named after. Sure, you can absolutely go too far. But if Mississippi wants to progress, then the conversations, the tough conversations like this, sometimes need to be had, and we'll see what happens in the state legislature if Fred Shanks decides to put it forth, move it forward, maybe in the next legislative session. Love to hear more of your comments. I'm sure they'll continue to come in on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395, and I can't wait to see what X messages I've got as well if you want to follow me at Scott Sands Media there. We'll talk to Starla Brown from Americans for Prosperity next here. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
With Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
What else?
And always on the SuperTalk app.
All right, so I got one thing wrong. Probably several things wrong, but it was pointed out that General Wheeler's statue from Alabama is still in Statuary Hall. Helen Keller is there now. They used Helen Keller to replace a different statue. I'm double checking some of the research I did. My name is Scott Sands. Mornings with Richard Cross continues on Super Talk Mississippi, and we're joined by Starla Brown from Americans for Prosperity. Starla, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming in today.
Yeah, Scott, thanks for having me on today.
One of the things that we've talked about all week, it seems like, is the state income tax and how much better the state would be if the tax cuts happen. Some of the legislation continues to stall, and I know eventually, I think Governor Tate Reeves would love to see the income tax completely abolished.
Yeah, obviously House Bill 1 came out very early in the session. The Senate has now, put out their version a little bit later, and the governor again this morning was calling out the Senate about, taking action. And so I think, that was on social media, but I think one of the things for us, we've certainly been involved in the conversations in terms of talking to legislators and leadership. We sent out press release even at the summit that the House had last fall. We attended. There's a kind of a point of view that we have, and so what I'm going to say at this point, there are good things in the bills and there are bad things in the bills in terms of that point of view. And so right now, I think our top line message is going to be the House and Senate have to come together. We do want to eliminate the income tax in Mississippi. So how do we get there? Top thing for us on the list, look at spending. And I think that that's got to be part of the conversation, like when we talk about, a negative effect. If you're going to continue to raise spending and then cutting the taxes, where does the money come from, right? So it's going to come from somewhere. We have a point of view that sometimes maybe is not as comfortable for everyone, is that we believe that goods and services should be taxed equally. So when you're looking at the grocery tax, that sort of taking that particular piece and reducing it. The Senate plan doesn't reduce it by as much as the House. So there's a couple of things there that we've been looking at, and then obviously there's the gas tax, right? And so for a lot of people, some people don't view that as a consumption tax, right? And they don't look at how does that come across? And there's differences between the two plans. So for right now, I think people have got to get in the room. They got to really start talking. So that means the Senate's got to come to the table and start, working with the House on this. Their plan does not go to a complete elimination, which could somewhat look like what we call a trigger. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's an ability for when you're doing an income tax reduction like that to not let the budget get out of balance, right? So you don't want to go so fast that you may get unstable. And I think that that's sort of where they're erring on that side of caution. But the House plan does do this over 10 years. There's a little bit of stuff up front that some people, our activists, have said to us they have concerns about because they feel like the offsets are a little bit later in the game. So there's just a lot to talk about there. But at this point, we do need to start talking about it seriously because the longer term outcome of eliminating that does, hopefully put us in a position to have that prosperity, right, and the economic growth.
A lot to unpack there, Starla. So let's look at the plan. I mean, obviously, we want a balanced budget. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Mississippi is one of the few states that is successfully balancing the budget. Mm-hmm. But we still have expenses and need to have the revenue to be able to pay for the programs that the state needs to continue. But there, as with all the states and on a federal level, a ton of waste, fraud, and abuse as well that could be cut to where we're not going to have to make up that big of a gap by eliminating the income tax. And if everybody is participating in the process through a consumption tax, if you want to call it that, then we're all really paying more accurately a fair share.
Yeah, I think that's the case, right? There are plenty of people out there that are not paying any income tax in the state. And so, the tax base gets broadened by different means of collecting revenue. And so I think, we have to really look at both of these plans. Maybe if we could take the good from both and figure this out, that'd be great. But I know the House is very intent on a full elimination. And I think most of the people in Mississippi would say, let's not tax our work, right? Let's not tax work. Let's figure out how to get this revenue other way. However, we are a state where this is a large part of the budget, so we do have to have the right types of triggers in place. You talked about something there with spending, right? So we're looking at this at the federal government right now with DOGE. There's just not that jaw-dropping stuff wasn't there all along. There's plenty of people in Congress who put out annual reports about wasteful spending and the abuse of that.
It's always eye-opening.
Yeah, it's always eye-opening. I'm like, I don't know. All these scientific projects that we fund and most of us could care less about, right? Because the average American is getting up every day, going to work, wanting to put food on their table, roof over their head, raise their family, and live their best life and their American dream. And so I think it's important for us to think about that, not just at the federal level, but at the state level. So what could we cut in spending as an offset? I think that's a question we're not talking about enough. What is in government right now that isn't actually the proper role of government that we're funding? We have a lot of agencies in Mississippi who have the ability to make rules.
Certainly some consolidation, some streamlining would work to that end.
That's something we've talked a little bit about, and I know this is going to be really unpopular when I say it, but I did
join the club. I seem to be finding unpopular opinions this morning.
So one of the things that we looked at this year, we were looking at education in the state budget. I just did a simple AI search between Florida. I'm from Mississippi. I grew up in Meridian. It's my hometown. But I spent 35 years in Florida and worked for AFP there as well. So coming back, 3 years now, I was just kind of researching the school superintendents, right? Because we had a lot of pushback about what we call open enrollment or public-to-public school transfers. And we already have it. We just wanted to tweak one aspect of that, which was the sending school not having the veto power when the accepting school was prepared to take a child on and have them attend the school. So I looked at the number of superintendents and did a simple AI search, and it was like through 2023. But when you look at the population of Florida, which is almost 10 times the population of Mississippi,
right. The superintendents per capita number is grossly out of ratio.
It's basically double. And so you start to ask a question in a small county with a city, why can't you have just the one superintendent there? And so I know that's not popular. I'm sure people are going to hear this today and really say, where are you heading there?
Well, it's the same struggle so many corporations have in top-heavy management.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's study after study out there that just shows that a lot, everybody's, we need more funding and money. And look, the House fought very hard and finally negotiated with the Senate last session to get a per pupil funding formula, right? Before that, you needed an accountant. You needed someone. I still don't understand it to this day, but it just didn't make sense. It wasn't a simple funding formula. And so you have all these districts and you have funding that goes with them. So the House did adjust the original bill, which would have put, I think, about $5 million more into actual education funding. And so to account for those differences between the districts, if a child transferred and their parents made that decision. But, at the end of the day, couldn't get that through the Senate. So, not sure why. It was such a simple bill. It gave opportunity to families in this, that have kids trapped in failing schools, for example.
Starla, I don't know if you have this number. So we're talking to Starla Brown, Americans for Prosperity. Any idea what it would mean to the typical Mississippian's wallet, checking account, if we eliminate the income tax? How much more money do we have for discretionary spending? What additional taxes how much additional it may cost if we're paying through a consumption tax?
I don't know that I have that solid number to say this is what happens, but here's what I will say. You'd have to buy a whole lot of groceries and an enormous amount. I've heard numbers as high as $5,000 when you research it in order to, if you look at what the tax on work is and what would be refunded to you. So I think at the end of the day, obviously, Mississippians would be better off if we're not taxing work. Consumption taxes don't just apply to Mississippians, right? They apply to everybody who visits our state. So, that broadens your tax base.
The other thing that's hard to quantify is we've seen in other states that have eliminated their income tax successfully is the number of people that it brings in for new residents and new businesses that may choose Mississippi to locate. And that increases your tax base, your revenue base as well.
Absolutely.
Starla Brown, Americans for Prosperity. Can you stick around for another segment? Let's talk about the 601 Blueprint.
Absolutely.
Mornings with Richard Cross continues on SuperTalk Mississippi. Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Heads up, parents. Next ACT test date is approaching fast, but there's still time to help your child maximize score results with Jumpstart Test Prep. Points gained on the ACT can really, literally save tens of thousands of dollars in college tuition. The Jumpstart Review is on demand online to meet your schedule with videos, subject area workbooks, scored assessments, and practices that deliver complete content review with all the tips and strategies you need to work faster and better on test day. You can order it now at jumpstarttestprep.com and give your child the Jumpstart advantage. Jumpstarttestprep.com for that. This is Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands sitting in. Thank you so much for letting me hang out with you this week. Starla Brown is in studio right now from Americans for Prosperity, the state director from Mississippi. Starla, there's more to do in Jackson than just eliminate the income tax. And Americans for Prosperity have a 601 blueprint of how to move the state forward. Let's get into some of these other things that really need to be done in Mississippi.
Okay, so what do you want to talk about first on that blueprint?
Let's start with healthcare, which is an area that's frustrated me for years now. I mean, obviously, Republicans, conservatives opposed Obamacare, and every election it's we need to fix healthcare, but I've yet to see a solid plan, and that filters down to the state level as well.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because that's frustrating for a lot of people. It's like, what's actually the plan? So we have some policy plans, and I'm going to encourage you on the federal level to just tell people to take the time and go to the personal option. I think it's thepersonaloption.com actually is the website. But there is legislation slowly moving or for consideration at the federal level. And what I often say to people is, it was not one thing that got us into this healthcare crisis. It was a number of things over a number of years, right? Bad pieces of policy, kicking the can down the road, whatever it looks like. And so at the end of the day, it's not going to be, there's not a silver bullet that's going to fix everything in healthcare. It's going to be a combination of looking at good policies that, when combined together, make healthcare more affordable and more accessible, and remove the barriers that are keeping people from having access. We've brought to this state Dr. Lee Gross. He's down in Northport, Florida. He turned around not only his practice, but a hospital there with the primary care type of model, and he teaches this model to doctors all over the country. And there was a hospital there in not in Northport, but near there, that was one of the most failing hospitals in the state of Mississippi. And one of the things that hospitals have as a cost is the health care for their own, employees. So he realized a lot of his employees were seeing him as a doctor anyway. They turned the model around, and those people that work at that hospital, have free health care, because they contracted and saved them money. It was their second highest cost. And so there are all of these different kind of scenarios out there that, when you put them together and you really get serious about it. But the top of the list for us at the state level has been certificate of need repeals. Mississippi has a lot of certificate of need laws, and so the best way for me to explain it to everyone, and normally when we talk to people around the state, our activists...
It's such a complicated topic to bring up.
It is complicated, but I'm going to narrow it down for you. I don't think when Target wants to open a store, they go to Walmart and ask permission, and then have to go to the government to get permission to open up down the street, right, as competition. So that's kind of a simplified way, but let's really talk about it from the perspective of that we have these different areas of certificate of need, and within those there's like subcategories. So let's just say a doctor's office, a clinic, a hospital wanted to, get a new MRI machine. They have to go apply and get permission from the government. There's a cost to that application. We've heard from people who have testified in committees, off session, about the cost of competition fighting. Your competition could actually then say, no, we don't want this issued. They can fight you in court. It can be, in some cases, I've heard, someone say as much as they spent $450,000 and then just had to walk away from it because they just kept being fought on it. So the thing is like, it's simple economics, supply and demand, right? Those were the kind of things that we're talking about. It's been since Reagan, every president from Reagan to Biden, and now of course Trump and again, have said we need to do away with these laws. They don't make sense. They're not a free market principle, and
And again, follow the money and find out why the legislatures, why the congressmen are not repealing and changing the laws, and you'll find some pretty solid lobby groups behind that. Again, this is such a complicated issue. We're not going to be able to cover it all fully, Starla, but I think it's important to check out the 601 Blueprint at AmericansForProsperity.org. It gets into all of those aspects of reforming healthcare, education, which we've talked about this year, and I think the concept of an education savings account is a great idea as we're moving forward towards school choice options as well. Starla Brown, thank you so much for coming in. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. I'm Scott Sands at Scott Sands Media on X, and the C Spire text line is still going from earlier this morning as well. We've got Fox News, Super Talk Mississippi News next, and try to have some fun to wrap up the show next hour.
I've searched this wide world over, through cities great and small, but I've never found another like my rose in that fall.
Sumner to Summit to Sumrall. Richard has something for you. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
What's a frequency cannon? It's your entity. I was brain dead, locked out. No, not up to speed.
For some of you commenting on the C Spire text line, you'll be happy to know Richard is back on Monday. I'm Scott Sands. Thank you for letting me fill in this week. So, I'm glad I've got thick skin.
Yeah, you better.
But sometimes unpopular opinions have to be shared from time to time to start a conversation. I appreciate having that opportunity. Look, the big story today. All across the state, severe weather is possible beginning later this afternoon. Most of the state might see some of these storms around 5 today. Damaging wind, large hail, tornadoes, all possible through really all of Mississippi and most of the southeast. And this is going to be around through Saturday night. It's affecting a lot of St. Patrick's Day activities that were planned today and tomorrow. So if you were planning to go to the parade or to a tent party, you might want to check to make sure those plans are still on and haven't changed any. And be aware of the possibility of tornadoes to form. And, of course, we'll have the latest here on our SuperTalk Mississippi radio stations. The weather tab at supertalk.fm has the latest information as well. Wesley Smith is joining us now. He's executive director of the Washington County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Been looking forward to this conversation all week. I'm told you got some fantastic stories about the state, Wesley. It's great to have you on.
Good morning, Scott. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you letting me be here today.
So I've been through Greenville a few times, but it's not a place I've been able to visit often. It's a beautiful area, and you got a lot happening there in Washington County.
Well, it is, and it's just like the rest of the state. I'm sure it's finally starting to green up. We get a little spring weather. I just had to mow my yard yesterday for the first time, and you know what that means, Scott. Here comes the tornadic weather. So
right,
it all comes together.
So the concept is you've got to mow the lawn in time for the storms to really let the grass grow faster.
Exactly, and then keep the yard too wet for you to mow for another 3 weeks.
Right. How much tourism are you bringing into the Greenville and the Washington County area? Is tourism up these days since the pandemic ended a few years ago?
Tourism has been up, pretty constantly for the past 15 years, and that's true statewide. It's sort of an amazing success story for Mississippi, and all my colleagues and I are pretty proud of it. But yes, post-COVID, it has come back pretty incredibly. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I was just reading about how much money the coast is expected to bring in this week with spring break activity on the coast. But really, Mississippi offers a lot to do year-round, and that's one of the attractive reasons to come visit Mississippi.
Well, that's exactly right. Up in our area, we have a huge amount of outdoor. I've got probably 5 or 6 lakes in my county. So we have people from all over the Midwest and the near West that come in and fish, hunt, that sort of thing. And of course, all of that, people don't think about it in their day to day, but it makes a huge economic impact on our state.
Where are your visitors coming from? Are they in-state visitors who are looking for a short weekend getaway, a nice little staycation type thing, or are you getting visitors from out of state too?
Well, both. A little bit of everything. Most of our hunters looking for public land or fishermen looking for tournaments are from out of state. We do get a lot of weekend, in-state staycation kind of thing. And then in the Mississippi Delta and some other parts of the state, it's not universal, but we get a lot of international visitors. A lot of them interested in our music history and blues history, that sort of thing.
Okay, let's talk about the blues in the Delta area. If I'm a blues guy, where do I go? What do I do?
Well,
where don't I go?
What I would suggest is what I would suggest is you pick where you want to end up at night. You either plan a trip around a festival. There are there are music festivals all over the Delta, all over the state, really, but blues festivals all over the Delta. They happen, throughout maybe 2/3 of the year when it's not blistering hot or freezing cold. And but I would pick where you want to end up that night. Hear some live music in Greenville or Clarksdale or Indianola or Greenwood, and then in the day. You might plan around using our Mississippi Blues Trail markers and that map. If you go on the Mississippi Blues Trail app, there's a GPS function, so you can sort of route yourself around the Delta just using that app and sort of follow that history in the daytime and see where you want to end up at night and hear it live.
So what's the big one? Is it the Highway 61 Festival? Is that the big festival?
Well, Highway 61's in Leland. It's a great one. And, of course, my neighbors to the north in Clarksdale, Juke Joint Fest is coming up in the not-too-distant future. And then the granddaddy of them all happens in September, the third weekend of September, and that's the Mississippi Delta Blues and Heritage Festival here in Greenville. It is the oldest, longest continuously running blues festival in the country. Believe it or not, Scott, it was second. It was the second one created after San Francisco, of all places, and the San Francisco Fest unfortunately folded some years back. So Delta Blues Fest is number one.
So I'm guessing though you can get some great blues music at any of the juke joints in the area at night.
Absolutely, yeah. It's still here, still a living art. We still have younger folks coming in. A lot of folks are familiar with Kingfish from Coahoma County, who won a Grammy, and he's part of a great success story of Clarksdale sort of taking hold of training that next generation, giving that music education, that arts education, which, again, I sometimes get on my soapbox on here. I don't have the solutions, but we need to be figuring out how to increase that arts education for our kids, because it's so much of our heritage here in Mississippi.
Are you concerned at all that the blues heritage may die? I mean, when you think about the blues and you think about music coming out of the Delta area, obviously names like B.B. King come to mind from Mississippi. Johnny Rawls, who's become a friend of mine over the years, and I get to see him play at least once a year. Love Johnny. I mean, is there a concern that there's not a new generation of up-and-coming blues stars?
Yes, there's always a little, but somebody always appears. I could name you 6, 7, 8, 10 artists that are younger that you just haven't heard of yet. And blues' time as sort of a leading music, has passed unless we get some miracle. But the art form will always be alive, and it's always the roots of so much that came after. And there's always an interest. I'll tell you, Scott, I spent 5 years working at the Blues Foundation in Memphis, and it's a nonprofit. It puts on it used to be called the W.C. Handy Blues Awards. Now it's just the Blues Awards. But it's kind of like the Grammys of the blues. And it has affiliate members all over the world. There are blues societies all over the world. And it's just like a club, an association of people. Well, they are literally worldwide. So that interest in our music and our heritage is there, and it is not dissipated. And all of those local societies are promoting blues in their area. People still want to hear live music. It's hard to believe sometimes after COVID, because it's taken us a while to get back out like we used to. But people still want to go out and be around other people, get off their device and hear live music. And music's one of those things that brings us together. So it's alive. I do worry about it. I do worry. We have a lot of worries in the Delta. But it's still there. It's thriving in its own way, and I know it'll continue on.
We're talking to Wesley Smith, Executive Director of the Washington County Convention and Visitors Bureau, here at Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands. What else is there to do in that area if you're looking for a little getaway? I know you work with the Viking Cruises a lot. Does the Viking Cruise dock in Greenville, maybe?
It does, Scott. They were here yesterday in 2023. Steve Azar, of course, who has a show on SuperTalk. Steve and I created a show for Viking's guest. We got a phone call from a vice president of Viking in Switzerland and he gave us 2 weeks to create a show. Something you'd want about 6 months to plan. But it went very well. It's within 6 weeks after our sixth show, it was their highest rated, passenger rated stop on the Mississippi River. And in November of 23, they told us, and this is sort of will be unbelievable probably to a lot of your folks, we were the highest passenger rated stop on planet Earth of any stop Viking makes worldwide. And so that's going great. They've just signed a 5-year contract. They're quite happy with Mississippi. They also stop in Natchez and Vicksburg. And we're trying to help them as much as we can because that industry is going to grow. They're planning on building more ships and bringing more people to Mississippi. And, of course, we all want that to happen.
Wesley, can you stick around? I want you to share a story about Mississippi's tie to the Beatles as well.
Beautiful.
Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands on Super Talk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass.
Morning, partner. The sun is up, the coffee is on, and you're starting your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Good morning, baby. Baby, welcome back to town.
You know, I could have mentioned this too, Wesley. I don't know if you're aware. Johnny Rawls' last album is actually produced where I'm working out of in my home studio in Toledo. So it's kind of the ties. We do a big blues festival up here as well. So it's good to have this kind of connection. Wesley Smith is executive director of the Washington County Convention and Visitors Bureau. This is Mornings with Richard Cross. He'll be back on Monday morning, I promise. My name is Scott Sands. You can find me on X at Scott Sands Media. The Scott Sands Show on Facebook. Of course, the C Spire text line is still going as well. Wesley, we're talking about the blues and stuff. I mean, the blues really helped originate a lot of the rock and roll music we love today. It's really kind of got a foundation in Mississippi blues, and perhaps the biggest rock band of all time. You can make an argument for other bands as well, the Beatles, and there's a Mississippi connection to the Beatles as well, and I wanted to hear the story. I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, so we'll start rolling through it here. And it's kind of timely, actually, Scott, because this story kicks off in March. So 103 years ago this month, there was a young lady named Vivian Carter, born in Tunica County, Mississippi. And after spending the first 6 years of her life in the Mississippi Delta, like thousands of African-American families, obviously before and after her, she moved with her parents as part of the Great Migration out of the South, moved to Gary, Indiana. And that Great Migration changed everything in America, especially culturally and especially musically. And Carter herself would play a major role in those changes. But I'm going to tell you, Scott, you may know this, but just for the listeners, Gary, Indiana, where she moved, is situated about 25 miles from downtown Chicago, on the southern tip of Lake Michigan, and it started as a company town. It was founded in 1906 by U.S. Steel and named for Elbert Henry Gary, one of the founders of U.S. Steel, in addition to Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and Charles Schwab, some sort of titans of American industry.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Carter, as she grew up, she went to Roosevelt High School there in Gary, and in 1939, she worked in the Quartermaster's Corps during World War II, first in D.C. and then in Chicago. But she always had this love of music, affinity for music. Well, in 1948, WGES, one of the great radio stations in Chicago, they had a DJ. It was kind of their top DJ. His name was Al Benson. And he conducted a contest to find new DJ talent for the station. And Benson himself, by the way, was a native of Mississippi, part of that Great Migration. He had moved to Chicago, but he was from Jackson originally. And he had a super popular show with the residents there on the west and south sides of Chicago. And those areas obviously would continue to grow in population as the migration continued. Well, by 1948, he was so well known among black Chicagoans, he was named the honorary mayor of Brownsville by readers of the Chicago Defender. So let's go back to Vivian. Benson holds this radio contest to find a DJ, and Vivian Carter won it. And the prize was a 15-minute segment on WGS, and that launched her radio career. She actually worked there for a time, but was not paid very much, struggled financially. And in just a handful of months, she moved back to Gary.
And being in radio and struggling financially is something I can relate to.
I understand. These are universal stories through time.
Universal truths.
It can be a struggle. That's right. Well, she kept sort of hearing that call. She wanted to be part of the music industry, and she soon landed a job back in radio. She worked for several stations, and she finally landed at WWCA in Gary. And for 6 nights a week, she hosted a radio show there called Living with Vivian. And her show was a mix of blues, gospel, R&B, and something new that appeared to be catching on at that point called doo-wop. And teenagers, black and white, would come to the studio to watch her through the window as her show aired. That's sort of a universal story as you look back through the history of radio and popular music as well. But many of the records Vivian played were by independent black artists, and she and her then boyfriend, Jimmy Bracken, thought the music would sell. This independent music, people were just having records cut. She thought it would sell if it had some record company backing. So, in 1950, she opened Vivian's Record Shop in Gary. And in 1953, she and Jimmy Bracken took 2 big leaps together. First, they borrowed $500 from a pawn shop and created their record label, VJ Records. And the name was a play on the word DJ, and also on their first name. So V for Vivian, and they spelled it out, V-E-E, and J for Jimmy, J-A-Y. And they also that year actually exchanged marriage vows and officially became partners in life and business. So the first act VJ Records signs were some friends, some other Roosevelt High alums, a group known as the Spaniels. And their first release was Baby It's You, which climbed to number 10 on the charts, and set up their second release, which most people will probably remember, Good Night, Sweetheart, Good Night, which rose all the way to number 5. Scott, I'm gonna try to avoid. I get the urge to sing, and none of us will enjoy that. But
yeah, you don't want me to doing that either.
You to sing some of these.
No, nobody wants that. I've already made enough enemies this morning. I don't need to sing.
Well, they released Goodnight, Sweetheart, Goodnight, and of course, many a dance over the years has ended with that song. But and that created enough financial success for the label that they actually moved to Record Row in Chicago, just a few blocks down from Chess Records, which is another very, very important independent label in America's music history. But VJ was on its way, so Carter and Bracken signed a stable of artists and a variety of different styles and had a lot of success. They signed a Dunleith, Mississippi native who'd been working at the Armour meatpacking plant in Gary and had previously been turned down by Chess Records, and that was Jimmy Reed. Reed's VJ Records are some of the most influential in American music history, and you would have a hard time finding a blues or rock band that hasn't covered at least one of his songs.
Wesley, I think we might need to fast forward the story a little bit to get to the tie-in with the Beatles here.
Sure. Yeah. Well, basically, they go on. I will tell you just some of the artists they're associated with. John Lee Hooker, Memphis Slim, Eddie Taylor, and then as they progress, the Mamas and the Papas, Gladys Knight, Dee Clark, Jimi Hendrix, David Gates of Bread, Linda Ronstadt, and Cher, and the Four Seasons. But they get their greatest success in '63. There was a young band coming up in Liverpool, England, and their record label, EMI, was trying to get American distribution, and they were affiliated with Capitol Records out in L.A., and Capitol turned it down. They didn't realize what was happening, and VJ actually signed the deal to bring the Beatles to America, their first distribution. And VJ put out introducing the Beatles. And the album, that was the first Beatles album released in America. It had I Saw Her Standing There, Love Me Do, and their cover of the Isley Brothers classic Twist and Shout. 6 days later,
really,
Scott Capitol
really
Records
kicked off Beatlemania.
Realized, well, that's it. But less than a month later, they would land at JFK Airport in New York. Paul gave they had a massive media press conference there, and they were asked who they were most excited to meet in America. And Paul McCartney responded, Bo Diddley and Muddy Waters. And the journalist said, who is that? And he said, you don't know who your most citizens are, which would tell you kind of how enthused they were with the music of America and Mississippi. But a couple of days after they landed the plane, they were on the Ed Sullivan Show, and Beatlemania was here. And it all goes back to Vivian Carter, born in Tunica County 103 years ago.
I think that's a great story and really showcases something we were talking about earlier, and the importance if we're going to want the rest of the country and the world to understand the cultural impact that Mississippians have had on music, on literature, on art, then we need to share these stories and let more people know about the people who have played an influence in the culture that we have today.
100% agree. There's Mississippi has a lot of tough history, and we don't need to ignore that, but we have a whole lot of things to be proud of. You could make an argument, and often do, that modern pop culture was basically created because of Mississippi, and there are a whole lot of little items that would prove that along the way.
Great story, and a story about the Beatles that I wasn't familiar with. Wesley Smith, Executive Director of the Washington County Convention and Visitors Bureau. So nice to meet you, man. I enjoyed the conversation.
You too. I'd love to do it again.
Mornings with Richard Cross continues. I'm Scott Sands. Again, be aware of severe weather possible later this afternoon. Probably around 5, we'll start to see some of these severe storms start to move in the area. High winds, hail, tornadoes, all possible through tomorrow, possibly affecting some of your St. Patrick's activities that are planned for this weekend. Click the weather tab at supertalk.fm and stay tuned to your SuperTalk Mississippi stations for any severe weather threats.
No matter where you're from, Abbeville, Batesville, D'Iberville, or any other ville in the SIP, you're starting your day off right. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Richard Cross back on Monday. Hope you enjoyed a spring break vacation. My name is Scott Sansick for letting me fill in this week. You're on Super Talk Mississippi, supertalk.fm. Austin Sumrall is joining me now. He's the chef and owner of White Pillars on the coast. And Austin, I know you've only owned the White Pillars for less than 10 years. When I was growing up on the coast and in high school, it was the fancy dancy restaurant I couldn't afford to go to. It was like the restaurant that we would save up to go to for homecoming. And I can't remember. I actually sent a text to the girl I took to the homecoming dance my senior year, which is weird that I would still have her number after all these years. And we couldn't remember if we went to White Pillars or Mary Mahoney's, two of the great restaurants in Biloxi. It's nice to meet you and good to have you on.
Yeah, thank you all for having me on here.
How did you wind up owning White Pillars? I've got to assume that maybe it was damage shut down after Katrina.
So it actually closed way before that. The original owners of White Pillars closed it in 1989. So they had it for 20 years. The story that I was told was that they were, ready to move on from the restaurant business, and nobody wanted to take it over. So they actually just closed down the building and the space. And I don't think it was because it was, not busy. I think that it was, a very popular restaurant back then. When my wife and I took it over, it had been closed for almost 30 years.
Yeah, you're probably, I don't think you're old enough to have been to the original White Pillars then.
Yeah, I was born in 1988, so
I don't need to know that.
I did not go to the original.
I was talking to a buddy of mine. We had dinner in what must have been 88 with the band White Lion before they played the Mississippi Coast Coliseum. And the record guys took us to White Pillars for dinner with that band. So it would have been right before they closed.
That's awesome.
I mean, from what you know and the heritage of White Pillars, have you changed? Obviously, it's a different menu, but do you have a lot of the memories of the old White Pillars?
So it looks very different. In 2012, the same people still owned the building, and they started renovations on it to try to bring it back to its original glory. And when they did that, they changed the way the outside of the building looked. They went back to the way it looked when it was built as a home in 1905. So it actually looks pretty different than it did when it was a restaurant. They had a big slanted roof that came off of the front of the building, and they actually had most of their dining on what is now our porch. So now it's on the historical register, that kind of stuff, and it looks more like it did in 1905 than it did in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And we do obviously have a totally new menu. It was kind of a internal struggle when we were deciding whether or not to even keep the name of the restaurant, because we knew we wanted to kind of be more on the forefront of cuisine and keep pushing forward. We didn't want to go backwards and do old dishes. But actually the original matriarch of the restaurant just passed away a few weeks ago. She was also my neighbor too, and she was a frequenter of this iteration of White Pillars as well. So we had a good relationship with her. She was 93 and a really cool lady. And I've heard so many great stories of people that had worked for her and the original White Pillars and everything. So we brought back their most famous dish, the eggplant Josephine, kind of as an homage to her and her legacy with the White Pillars. So that is something that we are doing right now. That's the only dish that we do off of the original menu, though.
There are so many traditional dishes, especially seafood dishes in Mississippi that people have grown up and love. You were, I think, a semifinalist recently in the James Beard Foundation Award. So you're coming at this with a different flair and maybe some modern takes on those traditional dishes. Yeah, we do it's called Nouveau Southern Cuisine, which, doesn't really mean a whole lot, but, essentially just making up
what
terms
it is,
now.
Right. Yeah, for sure. But it is a technical term, and, it means that we take Southern ingredients and we kind of do whatever we want with them. So we have a kind of a lot of different styles of food on our menu. And we kind of pull from the culture that's around us and our experiences. And I kind of tell people that our menu is mostly made up of things that I just like to eat. So hopefully that's also stuff that other people like to eat. As far as the James Beard stuff goes, still a semifinalist. We find out in April if we move forward. So that's pretty exciting too.
We're talking with Austin Sumrall from White Pillars in Biloxi. We talked about this earlier this week. I've got to ask, and I don't want to put you on the spot, are you featuring seafood from the coast, from Mississippi-sourced catfish and shrimp and oysters?
Yeah, you're not putting me on the spot. We ever since we opened, the only seafood that we've served in this restaurant comes right out of that body of water right over there.
So what are your thoughts on this seafood labeling legislation? Is that going to work to your advantage? Do you want to see more restaurants throughout the state be honest about what they're serving?
Yes. In fact, I'm a part of trying to move that forward. Obviously, it helps us. We've always felt like that it was the correct way to approach food and everything. People should know where their food that they're eating comes from. We like to take that one step farther, and we actually know our farmers and our fishermen, and we actually know who our food comes from, and we have good relationships with them. But the part of that kind of hurts us is, one, people kind of lose trust in restaurants when they're called out for lying to their customers, and that's something that we've never done. But it still kind of gives you trickle down effect from just being a restaurant in the same area. But also, you have other restaurants that are not necessarily lying about it, but they're maybe skirting around the truth and insinuating that they use Gulf seafood and they maybe don't. And then the way that hurts is that, you're using a cheaper, inferior product. And you're making everybody else that's trying to do it the right way kind of look bad. From a pricing standpoint and from a quality standpoint, if somebody that's visiting from out of town that goes and thinks they're eating Gulf seafood and maybe isn't, maybe leaves.
They're going to get the wrong
says,
impression.
Oh man, well that wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, I think I'm all for it.
It only makes sense to me. I mean, you're literally across the highway, a mile away from the water itself and from the shrimping boats. It seemed to me like you would want the freshest ingredients, the better ingredients, and even for restaurants in the northern part of the state, it's a few hours drive away. Get the stuff from your home state that's got better seafood, better quality.
Right, and I think that's what you would hope would happen. I think that there will still be people that don't use local stuff, but I think that it should be up to the consumer to be able to choose what they want to put, in their mouth and what they want to pay for. So I think that labeling and just transparency in general is really important. And our joke is that if we were to use any other seafood, it feels like cheating on the Gulf. So from where I'm sitting, I'm about 75 yards from the water. So we feel like that it's very important for us and for our local economy and everything else. And we're supporting people that are in our community too. And I think that's really important. And we do more than just the seafood too. We try to source as much local produce as we can. The table that I'm sitting at was made in Mississippi. The artwork that's on the wall next to me was, a Mississippi artist. Our plateware is made in Mississippi. We take it, 10 steps farther than anybody else would. And I don't expect everybody to do that, but it's something that's important to us.
That's how you can thrive and build a community if local businesses are supporting other local businesses. We're talking with Austin Sumrall. He's the chef and owner at White Pillars in Biloxi. Quickly, how is the restaurant industry in the state these days? I mean, how's business generally speaking? What are you hearing from other restaurateurs?
Well, the restaurant business is always up and down, no matter what. We always, like on the coast at least, Mardi Gras is a big time for us. Everybody has a lull kind of after the holidays, and we're lucky in that we have Mardi Gras stuck in the middle there, that everybody kind of gets back up and going for, and, goes to restaurants and has parties and, eats before events and things like that. And I think that kind of is a boost to the, local restaurants. And then we kind of have a little drop off after that. People giving up things for Lent, give up fast food. Don't give up local restaurants. Right. I think as we kind of get through that, it's starting to pick back up. And, for us, at least on the coast, we're a little weather dependent. So as, this weekend, right. Obviously not great weather, but we are heading into kind of warmer stuff. And
make a reservation for next weekend, maybe.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Austin, it's great to have you on.
Earlier this week was really nice.
Austin Sumrall, White Pillars in Biloxi. I got to try the swordfish schnitzel next time I come down there. It's great to have you on. Mornings with Richard Cross. I'm Scott Sands on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the
All right, now to the important stuff.
Your VIP pass to hear what the most influential Mississippians are talking about.
This is very important.
Huge news. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
All right, Lance, we're now just hours away from tip-off. I don't know how much work's going to be getting done today. Ole Miss Auburn play at noon. Texas, Tennessee at 2:30. Missouri, Florida, a 6 o'clock tip if all goes according to schedule, which it did not do yesterday. And then the late game tonight at 8:30, Kentucky and Alabama. So my predictions, I'll see where you stand on this, Lance. And I realize that it's a little bit easier for me to gamble on these games than in Mississippi. Go to a sports book or whatever you normally do to wager online until it's legalized. I'm sorry. I got to go with Auburn money line, although I might look at the spread and take Ole Miss with the spread. I think if they're getting a few points, Ole Miss might be the bet there with points. Otherwise, Auburn money line. Sorry, and it pains me as an Alabama fan to say anything positive at all about Auburn. Got to go with Tennessee money line. Missouri maybe with points depending on the spread. Florida otherwise, and man, I refuse to bet on anything related to Alabama, so I'm not even going to pick that game. But of course, I'd love to see Alabama win.
Morals.
It never works out well for me when I put money on Alabama, especially football.
It's your team. It's always tough when it's your team.
Right.
Well, and I'm with
what do you like?
12.5 is what we're seeing Auburn's favored. I don't know. I mean, I could see it being worse than that if Ole Miss doesn't get out of the gate well.
Really? See,
yeah,
I would take Ole Miss with 12.5.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's hard. To me, betting on sports is so much more difficult than betting in the stock market. It always was to me.
Well, and in basketball, sometimes you get a little bit of a lead in the final minute or two of the game, and fouls start happening, and those possession strategies, and that can easily run the points up over the spread.
Well, with 154.5 is the total between the two. That seems high. To me, again, I don't know if I would maybe take the Rebs and the under there. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't throw any money down on Ole Miss ever in anything because
I'm not throwing big money around either.
No,
I'm making like $5 parlays.
I'm like you with Alabama, though. I would never. And I don't say never or always much, but never is where the money would go. If I were gambling, it would never go on an Ole Miss game. Just never going to happen. But do
you have all the lines pulled up? What are the lines of the other games?
The Tennessee game between Tennessee and Texas. Tennessee is a 10.5 on that, with a 135.5 is the total point spread there. So again,
I might look for an alternate spread there. I might try to move that down tease it down to like 5.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And Missouri, Florida. I mean, Florida's so good, but Missouri's been hot. Florida's got a 9.5 point tally on the top side there. 161.5 is your total. Again, these games are hard to pick, but I mean, I'm rolling with Florida. I'd roll with Auburn, roll with Tennessee. And then you got the Kentucky-Alabama game, and Alabama 6.5 favorite over Kentucky. 179.5.
It's going to be it's likely going to be a high scoring game, but I think with the over under that high, I would probably go under.
Because at some point, from 200
you got to you got to play defense at some point, right? Or just leave the offense on each side of their court and let them shoot.
I'm going with the under on that. I mean, if you could do like a parlay with just over unders. I would probably, I'd probably look at those. The spread totals, I mean, all these teams are good and have played solid basketball coming into this point. So that's the part that gets me is, the difference.
I like where your head is, though. I like this idea of an Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida teaser to change the point spreads up a little bit, and that maybe I'll look at that in a few minutes and see how it goes. This afternoon, just a reminder, be careful, keep your ears and eyes open for any potential severe weather throughout the entire state late this afternoon around 5 o'clock and through the weekend. Damaging winds, large hail, tornadoes, all possible with severe thunderstorms, and that's going to be affecting a lot of the St. Patrick's plans over the next few days as well. So
baseball,
before you go somewhere, baseball too.
You got travel baseball weekends, and cooking out, and all that's going to be affected. And be careful. It is gray matter out there today. I mean, it's gray everywhere, so it's rolling in, and it's kind of warm too. That makes you worry. When you got the wind and warmth.
Weather.
It's thunderstorms and tornado weather. Be careful.
So we've got the latest information, the weather tab at supertalk.fm and on all of the SuperTalk Mississippi stations. Look, Lance, thank you.
It's
thanks
been a
to
blast,
Alex.
buddy.
I don't know how much credit Alex Patton gets on the air for the work that she does behind the scenes. Thanks to Will for asking me to sit in and everybody else on the SuperTalk Mississippi team.
We got a dream team crew here. It's a dream team. So.
Great people. It's been a pleasure and it's been an honor sitting into Gallo's slot and for Richard Cross, who's going to do great in the morning show here on SuperTalk Mississippi. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you all so much.
Well, pull that tiger's tail for me one time.
If you want to find me after today's mess, you can find me on X at Scott Sands Media or look for the Scott Sands Show on Facebook. I appreciate all the comments, positive and negative, not just today, but the entire week. It's been a lot of fun, and I look forward to the next opportunity if it should come.
I loved hanging out with you. We had a good time, and you are a pro. Thanks for your time and committing to us this week. It was an honor to work with you, sir.
My Tiger says thanks and roll Tide. Have a great Friday and stay safe. Thank you, guys.
Your home. A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Mid-Delta Auction Company is holding a spring equipment auction Thursday, March the 20th from their location across from Cannon Motors in Greenwood. Visit mdauction.com for more information. That's mdauction.com. We'll see you there.